It's a normal February day at SeaWorld. People are milling about, admiring the various attractions. It's quiet until you hear the blood-curdling scream of a woman. You bolt to the source of the sound, which turns out to be Shamu Stadium, and there you see Tilikum, the largest killer whale in captivity, thrashing a woman's body and repeatedly pulling her underwater. The woman desperately tries to break free, but is unable to escape from Tilikum's iron jaws. You stand there, helpless, as the other trainers are running around screaming orders on the tops of their lungs. It takes them 30 minutes just to corral Tilikum, and then another 10 to pry the dead, dismembered body from his mouth. The next day, reports surface of a woman drowning at SeaWorld, and the actual cause of death is kept a secret. This secret, a killer secret. Witness here one of the greatest corporate cover-ups, a dark secret of slavery in the 21st century, whale captivity. Now, many people may not know that behind the smiling trainers and fluffy Shamu dolls, there lies a dark secret to captivity that has been carefully cloaked and kept hidden from the public. But today, we'll pull back this veil that the corporations have cast upon us, examine the problems caused by captivity, before finally heading to the solutions. Time travel back to 1965, and the world's first ever orca show is about to begin, starring the beloved orca Shamu. Behind Shamu's great tricks and splashes, we find her story. When she was just a young calf, Shamu's mother was harpooned and killed right before her very eyes. Only by eliminating her protective mother were hunters able to capture Shamu and transport her to Marine Park. Sadly, this method of whale capture is quite common. Don Goldsberry, a whale catcher who worked for SeaWorld, caught and killed 4 orcas on the job. He sliced open their bellies, filled them with rocks, and then tied anchors to their tails so that their deaths would not be discovered. But the whales that are actually caught and transported to these parks live out the remainder of their lives in captivity. You may have visited one of these parks before. Ask any of the trainers, and they'll tell you the most difficult task is training the whales. How do you get a 6-ton animal to obey your every command? Well, as it turns out, food deprivation works pretty well. An anonymous SeaWorld trainer stated that the whales would start performing when they realized they weren't going to get fed. But even when the whales are fed, they're fed dosages of highly drugged fish. 2/3 of a whale's daily food allotment is composed of antibiotics. An anonymous Marineland trainer reported that the whales knew when they were getting the pill-stuffed herring and would often spit the spiked food out. Captive whales are fed such high dosages of drugs because the immense amount of stress of captivity causes them to rapidly develop ulcers. But unfortunately, other problems are less treatable and even more lethal. A recent article stated that captivity was a direct cause for a whale's premature death. In the wild, orcas live lifespans very similar to human lifespans. The males can live to 70 and the females 90. But in captivity, the average lifespan of an orca is 9 years. Rather than thinking, feeling organisms, the industry regards these animals as financial assets, essentially turning them into slaves. Laurel Parque, a zoo in Spain, reportedly forced its animals to perform even while they were injured and bleeding. But for the whales, the worst factor of all is being confined in these small tanks. Confining orcas, animals that can swim over 100 miles a day in tanks that are less than 1% of their natural environment, is the equivalent of a human living in a bathtub. Tilikum, the largest orca in captivity, has spent an arduous 25 years in a tank, sometimes in a small module that is only 2 feet longer than his entire body. So, if you were in a bathtub for 25 years, don't you think you get a little psychotic? And the whales that are ultimately unhappy and unhealthy do ultimately experience psychological problems and become aggressive. To date, there have been countless of incidents of captive orcas attacking each other. In 1989 at SeaWorld, killer whale Kanduke slammed into his tankmate Corky and then severed a major artery in his own jaw. Spectators report that blood stained the pool as a 10-foot geyser of blood spouted from Kanduk's blowhole. Over the next 45 minutes, Kanduk bled to death. Captive whales fight so violently because they have nowhere else to run. But it doesn't stop there. The trainers themselves have also been victims of aggression. By 2013, there have been over 100 counts of aggression filed by whale trainers. One even stated, "I voiced my preference to never to move over to Shanmu Stadium, but I was transferred there anyway. There were several other trainers opting to transfer out of Shanmu. We were placed into life and death situations every moment that we were there." Recognizing these issues, OSHA, the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, proposed stricter regulations for SeaWorld, and then even issued a prophetic warning stating, if someone has been killed already, it's only a matter of time before it happens. However, SeaWorld ignored OSHA's proposal and spent nearly $600,000 on lobbyists in 2010 to overturn OSHA's ruling. Later that same year, OSHA's prophetic warning came true. On February 24, 2010, SeaWorld's top trainer, Don Brancho, was killed by Telecom. He dragged her in the pool, thrashed her around, and wouldn't release her body until the other trainers cornered him and pried open his mouth. Don is the third person that Telecom has killed, and to date, captive whales have caused 4 deaths. 4 too many. 4 preventable deaths and hundreds of unnecessary injuries. Now, all these problems ultimately stem from one source: captivity. Captivity places an immense amount of stress on these animals. Stress leads to frustration, and frustration then leads to aggression. Orca expert Naomi Rose stated that captivity turned orcas into much more neurotic, unpredictable, and much more dangerous animals than anything found in nature. But despite all these problems, there are solutions. They're feasible and don't require magic wands or pixie dust. With a 3-step solution, we can save the whales. Step 1, outlaw captive breeding. In every marine park in the world, inbreeding is becoming inevitable, and the only way to stop this problem is to discontinue this program. Have the current group of whales in captivity be the last group of whales in captivity. Even without captivity, the public can still be educated about environmental matters. Take Britain, for example. A strong anti-whaling nation, Britain has one of the most conservation-oriented publics. Yet, there are 0 captive facilities in the UK. Step 2, create sea pens. Sea pens are parts of the coast that are netted off for the purpose of keeping whales and cetaceans in captivity. The average sea pen is 20 acres, thousands of times larger than any tank. Here, the public can still view the whales, and the corporations can still make revenue. And here, the whales and dolphins can swim with the natural rhythms of the sea without being crammed in small metal boxes, forced to listen to blaring music and screaming people. Sea pens would be good for the public, good for SeaWorld, and good for the whales. But government legislation can only go so far, so it's up to us to take the next step to make the biggest impact. So, step 3, educate yourself. But not at a marine park, because really, how much do you learn by watching someone surf on top of a whale's head? Abstain from supporting these amusement parks and their exploitation efforts. Stand up to captivity and advocate for freedom. So, ask yourself, is your $79 ticket worth the price the whales and trainers pay with their lives? Is it morally justified to keep these beautiful, intelligent creatures in captivity? Captivity decreases their lifespans, causes chronic health problems, and turns them into violent, neurotic creatures? If we continue to ignore these problems, they'll only get worse, and killer whales might just live up to their names. But really, whales are very similar to humans, you and me. They experience deep, human-like emotions, display exceptionally high levels of intelligence, and develop extremely strong bonds with their families. So, at the end of the day, what we should enjoy, perhaps, is not their performance, but the mere fact of their existence. The secret is out now, and it's up to us to take action and make a difference.